The last presentation presenter is Kayoko Okumura, member of KU-ORCAS. Please, Kayoko Okumura, please start your presentation. It's okay?
Okay. You can my screen? You can see my screen?
Yes, yes. No problem.
Okay. I'm going to talk about open access platform of KU-ORCAS. The Kansai University Open Research Center for Asian Studies, KU-ORCAS, is an ongoing project for organizing the diverse and unique resources at Kansai University. Its purpose is to create digital archives for East Asian cultural studies and making them accessible to the public, hoping to establish an internationally recognized research hub. This was part of the private university research branding project for the fiscal year 2017, funded by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology of Japan, also known as MEXT. East Asian Studies at Kansai University. East Asian Studies at Kansai University has its roots in a private school, Hakuen Shoin, which was established about 200 years ago during the Edo period. This school held a vast library on Chinese classics, which was donated to Kansai University in its entirety upon the school's closure in the mid-20th century. This private library is a reason for establishing the Institute of Oriental and Occidental Studies of Kansai University. In this sense, the study of classical Chinese literature and philosophy is a fundamental part of the academic tradition of our university. All these projects are the foundation of KU-ORCAS, and KU-ORCAS is continuing to be an open research institution. We put a particular emphasis on the openness of our research institution because we want to tackle the problem of compartmentalization or the silo-forming problem. One of the reasons that causes this silo-forming problem is a lack of international standards for digital image data. In other words, the lack of compatibility among digital data. To address this issue, an international framework for image data, IIIF, has been introduced. This international web content sharing framework has been adopted by major academic and public institutions in many countries. It is adopted also in Japan by some institutions. KU-ORCAS is also digitalizing Kansai University's academic resources for China and Oriental Studies in compliance with the IIIF requirements and making the data accessible to the public. Our efforts have significant implications to the future of our studies in this field, because in Japan, ICT has not yet been sufficiently deployed in this field. But there are problems too. Although I said that ICT is not sufficiently deployed in the Chinese and Oriental studies in Japan, it does not mean Japanese researchers are simply behind the times. What I meant was that carrying out and maintaining digitalization require a lot of efforts. In other words, securing funds for any projects is extremely difficult and time-consuming. KU-ORCAS is also facing this problem. Also, it is widely accepted that the digital data of research materials and research methodologies are useful. There seems to be a hard fact that resources we can use of are limited, and we are taking it for granted that digitalization is an extremely difficult task. This attitude of ours might narrow our perspectives for digitalization. As a result, I'm afraid it might lead to the decline in the Chinese and Oriental studies in Japan. Therefore, we should pursue both digitized data and actual materials, not choosing between the two. KU-ORCAS is in its final years of the project, and I am now going to talk about the present situation of KU-ORCAS where we are. Unit 1 has developed a digital archive of the documents within the Kansai University archive. In relation to the subject of language contacts, and the basic idea is to form integrative archive by linking its entries with records and documents stored in institutions overseas. Unit 2 is aiming to develop a comprehensive archive of documents primarily from the Hakuen Shoin, which is the roots of Kansai University's academic tradition. Unit 3 undertakes digital archiving of excavation records, archaeological artifacts, and literature that have been accumulated by Kansai University's research projects on the ancient port town of Namba and political center Asuka. The aim of Unit 4 is to popularize new studies of the Japanese classical literature, Manyoshu, and new research methods by creating an open resource on how to digitize classical texts. The pilot unit was formed by the members of the 4 other units I have just mentioned. The objective of this pilot unit is to create and develop digital archives that are not covered by the other units. These research units and groups are aiming to be open to the public, and I'm going to introduce the achievements we have made in the past 5 years. 1, to make research resources available to the public. We have developed and published multiple digital archives, which amounted to more than 6,000 items during 2020. 2, to open up research institutions engaging in digital archiving. We collaborated with 16 pioneering museums, libraries, and archival organizations across the world, and made our academic resources available to the public. 3, to create an open environment so that we can share and discuss know-hows concerning the development of digital archives and their uses as well as the challenges. We organized more than 63 symposiums and forums. This is a site. 4, in order to make research outcomes available to the public, we have published 199 papers in 2019 alone. And we made more than 100 presentations at academic meetings. So as you can see, our projects have been a great success, surpassing by far the initial goals. Now I'm going to introduce some of the digital archives we have published. First, I'd like to mention the Modern Chinese Literature Database, built in 2006 as part of a grants in aid project led by Professor Keiichi Uchida, former director of the Asia Open Research Center. This database consists of approximately 400 items, mostly produced by Europeans during the 19th century. They are digitized and organized in a way which makes possible full text search, cross-document concordance search, and the search using either simplified or traditional Chinese characters, as well as the aligned display of text and images. That alone, this database played an important role in the field of humanities, but we'd like to continue improving it. We are confident that we've already made significant contributions to the studies in the humanities, but we are going to make more contributions than ever in the future. Kansai University has many private archives in relation to East Asia, which we started to digitize. There are some materials that only Kansai University owns, and our university is the only place where people can have access to them. As of today, some 6,000 books have been digitized, but only 3,000 are available to the public. What follows is a list of the private archives that Kansai University owns. The Masuzawa archive, which has been added to our library, is an invaluable source for Chinese studies and Chinese language learning in modern Japan. We are currently converting its content into a digital format in order to make it available online as soon as possible. Private collection archives include many non-published texts, such as letters, calligraphic works, as well as not text items. And some of them have already been made accessible online. These include the following: Night Archive, this is Chinese style wax stamps. Nagasawa archive. There are many novels written in colloquial Chinese. Nakamura archive. Master archive. There are many books about the West culture, communication to China and Luxin. As you can see, we have digitized many documents and items of East Asian studies without limiting the research area. Most of them have been stored through the history of Chinese and Oriental studies at Kansai University. I can say that they represent the history of the Chinese and Oriental studies of this university itself. As I have already mentioned, digital resources are now indispensable for the study of the humanities. The implication of this does not only mean that digitalization provides us with convenient research tools, but it leads to the preservation of academic inheritance throughout the history of mankind. This step towards the digital conversion of resources is perfectly in line with the KU-ORCAS motto, 思想は思想. A private archive nobody has access to is the same as the absence. The message of this motto is that historical documents must be accessible to all. Thereby, they can serve their true purposes. This is not to say that we should be content with building digital archives. From researchers' perspectives, these archives must lead to new research methodologies. For example, corpus, concordance and full text search, text mining technology, etc. These new research methods and advanced digitalization do not mean to dismiss traditional methodologies. However, without adapting these new technological advancements, it would be impossible to produce new knowledge in the areas where traditional methods were incapable of solving problems, such as natural language processing and large volume text analysis. Having said that, there are problems too with these new technologies. That is, we have to be particularly careful of whether digitized text data is correct and accurate. To take one example, in the Chinese language, there are several writing systems. One word or character can be expressed in different ways, retaining the same meaning. These differences of written characters in the different writing systems do not lead to significant consequences when studying the language semantically. And so, even if the text is integrated into one system, it doesn't make much difference. However, differences in writing systems might lead to significant consequences in philological and linguistic analysis, because the differences of some specific characters may indicate the periods in which the texts were written. If these differences were erased, the documents would permanently lose their value as study materials. Also, we need different types of digital resources. Depending on the different research purposes. We must ensure the digital texts are accurate and universal. This is our task in the future. There are many problems we must address in order to develop and appropriate research environment. and creating digital data is certainly one of them. And this is a task for everyone, including myself and colleagues, even if we are not digital experts. Conclusion. KU-ORCAS has been a successful project, and we have been aiming at making digital resources access-free and have been addressing the problems of silo forming or compartmentalism as our founding philosophy. We would like to continue improving our open research resources, brushing up our research groups and our research know-how. We will continue to provide research platforms that are useful not only for those who are engaged in East Asian studies, but also the general public, students, and other stakeholders. It is our hope that through these efforts, we will make contributions to the development of digitalization in East Asian cultural studies. Finally, this is the end of my presentation on behalf of KU-ORCAS. And please note that Professor Uchida and Professor Fujita will be happy to have your feedback or questions regarding our project. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.